Lighting has never been my strong suit in terms of actual studio stuff and being able to set up a nice looking 3-point lighting system, but as I've been learning over the last couple of months how to properly light a subject and a scene with proper studio kit, I wanted to translate that over to my YouTube content. Now I do run a second channel other than this one, and for that I needed some new lighting. I did have a Ulanzi light that did break on me, unfortunately, just recently. It was pretty tiny and pretty cheap, so I decided to upgrade and splash on these, the Andoer W140s. They cost around £41 here in the UK if you're including all the accessories, which I did opt for, and we'll get onto those in a second. But essentially this is an LED light panel, which in a studio set would more likely be used as a cache light to really get some reflections going in the eyes. But for YouTube content, these are perfectly fine as a key and fill light, and I liked it so much that I actually bought two. And while this isn't a 3-point lighting setup video, I'll be going through my 2-point lighting setup and how I found using these two over the past couple of days. And I'll show you some demonstrations of how I've set them up in different ways to get some different effects. First and foremost though, in the box, you get a fair bit. You can go for a cheaper model of around £30 for just the light itself, but I wanted both a tripod and the cold shoe mount, and that was about a tenner, so I really wasn't too fussed about paying that, and I went for it. So in the box you get a load of accessories, the cold shoe mount, which again is the important one, and the tripod that kind of folds in on itself and packs away very neatly. I've got quite a lot of monopods and tripods that are quite small like this, mostly from using the Insta360 products, but you can never have too many, so I happily went for these. Then you have the lights themselves. Now, these are pretty small, honestly smaller than I thought they would be, LED panels. The battery here is charged by USB-C and from my experiences run from about 1 hour 45 minutes to 2 hours 30 minutes depending on the brightness intensity and the mode. And speaking of which, there's quite a bit to play around here with. For your standard modes, you can adjust your color temperature from about 2K to 9K, so a fair bit of range there. I usually stick, and for this video I've stuck to 5600, and you can adjust your brightness in 1% increments, which is much appreciated. My previous light did not have that, it was very basic, so that's nice to see on here. The back panel is very easily readable, and aside from this you've also got different modes to adjust hue, so if you'd like a certain color. Saturation is also an option as a certain mode, and you also have kind of what I call the gimmicky modes where you can emulate, say, fireworks or paparazzi or a TV or a candle. These can be useful for some people. For me, in terms of content, at least here on YouTube, I don't really end up using them, and I find them more of a gimmick than anything else, but I'd rather have them than not have them, I guess. For me though, I'm personally just going to be using the manual settings on this thing, and I found them very, very good. Filling a small room and lighting a single subject, these are plenty bright. And with two of them on the go, with that incremental lighting in terms of being able to adjust by percentage, you can get a couple stops down on one and a couple stops up on the other, and get a good 2-point lighting setup going with a bit of depth to it, or have a key and backlight. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so here we are at 15mm with the Fuji 15 to 45mm 3.5 to f6.5, I want to say, but we're at 3.5 right now in terms of our f-stop number, which isn't really that bright in terms of this room. We're at ISO 1000, shutter speed, double the frame rate, which is 25 so up to 50, and you can see it isn't the brightest here. This is just with the natural lighting, and my old light would be able to fill this in fairly well, but you'd have some really harsh shadows going on. Now, with these, you're still going to get that because they are not diffused at all. You'll need some diffusion paper or something to diffuse them on the front if you want some very soft shadows on their own. But lighting up and putting there, you can see that it illuminates me pretty well with the 3.5. Not quite as much as I'd really want, but I think I'd have to go in and adjust the ISO there really. But for YouTube, I'm perfectly happy with this. That's 100% brightness on the right. So it looks pretty good, but you're getting some harsh shadows on the nose, as you can see, which I'm not really a fan of. But we can take the second one and use a nice little 2-point lighting setup here to eliminate that a little bit. Not to completely remove it and make my face completely flat or anything like that, but just to fill in. So we're taking the other panel and stopping down a little bit, going pretty much the same angle, but on the other side, at about 50% brightness. And we're going vertically this time just to show off that you can go vertically, as it does have a thread on either side, which is much appreciated. Same color temperature, and as you can see, putting that there makes a world of difference. Those shadows are still there, you can still see them, but they're not really harsh. We've got a much nicer ratio going on there, and we're looking a lot more evenly lit than we were before. So, looks pretty good. But if you want something a bit closer, a bit more cinematic, let's switch over to a 35mm f1.4. So we're allowing a lot more light in, and we can kind of play around with it a little bit more there. Settings on the camera though are exactly the same, so we punch in here, and this is exactly the same lighting setup, but on a manual 35mm at f1.4. So very wide open, and you can see there, looks pretty good. Even though this is graded in post, I could definitely do a lot more to bring out some more detail and some more contrast, but I'm quite happy with it. Switching back to just the 1-point lighting setup, as you can see there, harsh shadows are back on the nose. doesn't look too great, but to be honest, I would be happy with this just for some short form content or something like that. But 2-point does make a world of difference. 3-point would be lovely as well, of course, you get that backlight and the fill light in, but as it stands, pretty happy with it. I'll leave a link to the products down in the description below. They're not affiliate or anything like that, I don't get anything from it. I have just purely enjoyed using these, they've been very, very good, and if you'd like to pick them up, they're down below. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you've learned something today, and I hope to see you all in the next one.